Hey, Med PB team. My name is Howard Litwak, and I'd like to welcome you to the Howard Litwak Show. Everything you want to know about Howard Litwak. So, let's start at the top. The question is, what is empathy and how do I use it? Dr. Robert Hartman, who developed the Attribute Index and was nominated for a Nobel Prize for his work, defines empathy. Well, first, it's one of three dimensions of thinking. And he defines empathy as the ability to understand and perceive the feelings and attitudes of others. It's the ability to put yourself in other people's shoes and perceive how what you're going to say and what you do is going to impact them. Now, it happens to be that I score really high on this, so there's an objective measurement for empathy. It's the key to developing rapport, right? So rapport is what leads to building good relationships, which I utilize in interactions with customers, prospects, and teammates. And I also use my empathetic skills to make sure that I'm always nailing effective communication and to improve my communication with everybody that I interact with. And combined with the persuasive theories of persuasion that I've learned, this is what helps me to inspire and motivate others to take actions. So I've got some notes here that's going to kind of help keep me on track. So what drives me nuts? All right, so I'll tell you, my sensitivity meter is really low, so there isn't a lot of things that drive me nuts. I have a couple of pet peeves, though, which is just a couple of shades above driving me nuts. Here we go. All right. My neighbors don't stop for stop signs in the neighborhood. And to me, like, stop means stop, right? And I can tell you with 100% certainty that nowhere in the New York State driver's manual does it say, oh, if you're approaching the stop sign but you could see that no one's coming, you don't have to stop. It does not say that. So I always stop at stop signs. Maybe that's just me. That's number one. Number two is I don't like a lot of commercials. So like if I'm watching TV, there's some commercials I can tolerate, but the ones that I don't like are the drug commercials. You know, the ones that list for 30 seconds a list of side effects. Don't use Berlanta because use of Berlanta, or don't use Berlanta if you are allergic to Berlanta. Like, I don't need to hear that. I'll either change the channel or mute it just because I don't want to subject myself to that. All right, so one thing that kind of drives me nuts, you know how you could be driving on the highway and you're in the middle lane of 3 lanes and there's nobody else around and somebody will pass you or start to pass and then end up pacing your speed. So there's nobody else on the road, but you've got to be right in my space. And whenever that happens, I'm like, come on, like why do you have to drive right next to me? First of all, it's not safe because I want space around me if I can help it, just because you never know what's going to happen, right? So here's what I'll do. After saying like, come on, I'll speed up by 2 or 3 miles an hour, which will do one of two things. First of all, the other driver will either drop back a little bit, which is fine. They can stay back there. Or I could just see it going through their minds. They'll speed up too because they say, oh, I got to stay on pace with this guy. So then once I see that they speed up, I just drop back to the speed that I was going and just let them go so that I have my space back. So it's not really a major thing, but something that does drive me a little bit nuts. All right, so what makes me weird? Couple of things. If I'm listening to a song on the radio on the way home and it's something that I really like, I will sit in my garage and continue to sing until the song is over. But doesn't everybody do that? Maybe, I don't know. Okay. I know my weight to the decimal point. Yesterday I was 165.1. Today I'm 164.5. Oh, and then I make sure that I enter that in my Garmin app so I can see trends. And I'm kind of structured in some things in my life, particularly my closet. So if you were to take a look in there, you'd see shirts here, pants here, jackets here. And sometimes my wife will she'll put something away from me, but she'll put the shirts where the pants are instead of where the shirts are. And like, I don't get that. So I used to say, but don't you see where like the pants go here, not the shirts? So over the years, I've learned just to say, thank you for putting it away. And then I'll take the shirts out from where the pants are and just put them where I'm supposed to be. And I feel better. All right. My cat's name is Dolly, but I have 34 names for her. I've actually written them down, and I added a couple just in the last week. Sometimes I don't even know what I'm going to call her until it comes out of my mouth. Is that weird? Like, the cat's name is Dolly, but who knows what I'm ever going to call her. All right. I set my sprinklers when I go to water my lawn. I set them for 19 minutes. I don't even know why. I don't even know where that number came from, but I just pressed 19 and it seems to work. So I don't know if that's weird, and I don't know why I do it. So last, I had a conversation with my sister last night. I said, I gotta answer the question, what makes me weird, right? Because I figured if anybody knew or could give me some insight, it would be my younger sister. And without hesitation, she said, do you remember Billy Mitchell, who was a friend of hers from school? Now we're going back 30 years ago, because I used to spend 3 or 4 weekends a year just as a getaway to go and hang out with her and her friends. And she said, Billy Mitchell used to call you the missing link, which is so funny, and I forgot about this. And she said, we were such a weird, eclectic group of people, and Billy just said, you fit right in, as weird as we are, and you were what we always needed at that time. And I think that's super cool. Like, I never knew that. I didn't remember that I was a missing link, but I guess that I guess they looked at me as the missing link. All right. So next, what do I do when I'm upset, or what do I do for fun that I'm obsessed with? So I run for fun, and it checks a lot of boxes for me, right? It gets me out in nature. It's my alone time to think, and it's what I do for exercise. Now, between March and September, October, where I'll run a half marathon, I run 400 miles, which is, the only thing that you could say is it's an obsession to go and run 400 miles over that period of time. And so that's one thing that, I'm obsessed with, and it is fun for me. Like this morning I went out and I ran up and down hills, literally 2 miles, just up and down hills. That's a really good workout. So another thing that I'm kind of obsessed with, my younger son, 12 years old, has been in Taekwondo. He's a red belt now. And I love to take him 3 nights a week to go and sit and watch the class. Been doing that for years. And particularly on sparring nights. Now, just so that you know, I've got a long history in martial arts. I studied it for like 15 years, so I can totally relate to him. And we talk about, what are you going to work on for sparring? When you spar this person, what are you going to do? You have to watch out for these types of things because we know the partners that he works with. So I love doing that. I consider that fun. Let's see. I'm an avid reader. So aside from business business books, I read, 20 to 30 novels per year some years. Every once in a while I write them down just so that I can look back at the end of the year and see what I've actually read. Some of my favorite novels or my favorite authors are Dean Koontz, James Patterson. I read a lot of Clive Cussler, some Terry Goodkind. That's what I read. And if there's nothing new that's out, like if I'm caught up on all the new books, I'll actually go back into my library, because I have a library of books that I've collected over the years, and there's some books that I've read or that I've read 5 or 6 or more times, and I'll just read them again just because I really enjoy them. All right. And then, of course, there's weekend family time, spending time at the pool, swimming, just kicking around, taking walks in one of the local parks. We have some beautiful parks around here, so we like to do that to get out. And going to a beach upstate New York where we are has tons of lakes with beaches that we can get to, so there's nothing like packing a lunch, cooking a barbecue, and spending the day on the beach. All right, so next, talking about teams. So I'm going to start, we'll go back to the first real team that I was on, and this is the early 90s. It was retail sales that I was in. There was a group of us who were roommates, 3 of us. And so we lived together and we worked together. We were really good friends. And then we had an extended group of friends, which extended, depending on the day of the week, extended out to 10 or 12. So we got along together at work. We got along together outside of work. We did everything together. We were such a cohesive team. We had fun on the sales floor, which translated to the customer service that we delivered. And whatever needed to get done, we were willing to help each other. So that's the first thing. We'll move to the next team that I was on, First Guarantee, which I started on that team when there was, I don't know, there's probably 12 of us when we started, and it grew to 300. And so this company was literally the boiler room. I lived it. We were on the phone all day long in refi land during the mortgage refi boom of the 2000s. We were super focused from a very small company when we first started. We were super focused on activity, and we were super focused on our pipelines. That was drilled into us. And when we said something to our CEO who ran the pipeline meetings, like if we said something was going to get done, it got done. Mostly because we didn't want to answer to, you said you were going to get this done and you didn't, why not? Like that was never a good conversation. We had a hyper focus on production goals as a team culture, which was super intense. But we worked really hard and we played really hard when we were outside of work. And that company grew to $1 billion in new revenue over an 8-year period. And then back in 2008, we kind of know what happened to the mortgage business and what happened to that company. So the third team example that I will give is at Six Marketing. So when I first started there, I brought the concept to them of core values, right? And 2 of them, so we developed them and we made sure that we lived them. A couple of examples was continuous learning. That was one of our values. And at our weekly Friday afternoon meeting, one of the things that we put in place was everybody had to share something that they learned over the week. So whether it was business related or not, we knew that we were going to have to answer, what did you learn today? And we all learned from each other. And the second core value as it relates to this conversation is striving for the 1%, which is doing things that other people, other companies didn't do. And you know, as we talked about what was working and what wasn't working in regular meetings during the week, we would always come back to, well, is that of 1%, or what could we have done better? And it really helped us keep our focus on continuous improvement. All right, so next is, let's see, unanswered questions. Just a couple. What does the onboarding process look like? Love to talk about that. And of course, I'd like to know what are the top priorities for day one, week one, month one, and 90 days, just so that I'd have a focus on this is what's expected of me, and I can make sure that I not only meet but exceed those expectations. And the third question that I'd have is I'd love to have a conversation around what makes you guys kind of quirky and weird. So I want to hear that. So the next question was about 100% responsibility, which I can totally relate to this. Because hold on for a second. So one of the first books that I read is Jack Canfield's The Success Principles. And did you guys know that's principle number one? I read this book for the first time 30 years ago. It's close enough to that I could say it was 30 years. And I probably read it, 17 times, right? So Canfield talks about you can't blame others. And for the success that you want, you have to take responsibility for things. And then I'll expand on that a little bit. Tom Collins, he wrote Good to Great, etc., and Built to Last. He talks about, as it relates to rating leaders, mirror and window events. And how does a leader look at things? Does he or she look out the window and blame everybody else? Or do they look in the mirror and take responsibility? So I choose to look in the mirror rather than looking out the window and blaming others. And I'm going to combine that with Stephen Covey's sphere of influence, which if you've seen it, it's the concentric circles. So in the inner circle is you have direct control, and in the outside that circle is you can influence the outcome, and outside of that is no influence. That's the weather, right? That's a meeting got canceled because the roads are closed due to an ice storm in upstate New York. Like, can't control it. You just deal with it and you move on. So some examples of taking responsibility is, so let's say that I drive an hour to a prospect meeting and the person I was supposed to meet at that time is not there. Well, that's not my fault, right? Like, I can't control if that person's there. But the way that I look at that is, did I call before I drove an hour to confirm that appointment? Right? And if I weigh 180 pounds because I ate the cookies and I ate the ice cream and I ate the pizza, all of which I love, that's my fault. And if I didn't exercise, that's my fault. So I can't blame the person who put the cookies and the ice cream in the house, but a lot of times it was me that bought the stuff anyway, so if I'd just be blaming myself, but I do like cookies and ice cream. All right, so I believe and I believe in and I live taking 100% responsibility. You will find that I will look in the mirror and not out the window, and I will look for a way to influence important outcomes even if I don't have direct control over it. All right, so what might you not expect from me on the first day of work? So I'm not even going to go ahead to the first day of work. I'm going to start before the first day of work. And this is something that I actually might start tonight, now that I think about it, is having a sales and marketing plan put together. And that would be including, what are the value propositions, using your ideas but in words that fit my personality? And what are the questions that I'm going to ask? What am I going to ask current clients? That's important. How am I going to introduce myself? What are the important questions as it relates to the certain niches that you have that I'm going to want to ask in addition to any questions that you might have? Just so that I am literally ready to hit the ground running, as well as identifying some key large accounts that we're going to want to penetrate. All right, so that is the Howard Litwak show for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I do very much hope that you want to experience Howieland firsthand for the next 15 or 20 years or so. So thank you again for watching. Have a great day. Hope to continue the conversation very soon. Howard, out.